What happens when a liberal reporter tries to mock Karoline's deeply held faith in a public setting? And more importantly, how does she respond when the attack isn't just on her policies, but on her very beliefs? What Karoline Leavitt did in response wasn't just unexpected, it was unforgettable. This wasn't some heated debate or a typical press exchange. It was a moment that stopped everyone in their tracks, a lesson in grace, strength, and conviction. But to understand why her words carried so much weight, we need to start where it all began. In White House press briefing, reporters firing off questions at lightning speed, the air practically crackling with energy. Then there's Karoline, standing at the podium, calm, focused, and ready to take on whatever was thrown her way. She's known for her articulate responses and her ability to keep her composure, even when the room gets heated. But that day, things took a very personal turn. Enter Kevin Hart. If you don't know who he is, Kevin's the kind of reporter who thrives on confrontation. He's built a reputation on pushing boundaries, asking the kinds of questions that make people squirm. Some might call it brave, others might call it opportunistic, but either way, Kevin knows how to command attention. And that day, his attention wasn't on policy or governance. No, that day, Kevin had one target in mind: Karoline's faith. Now, Karoline's faith is no secret. She doesn't shout it from the rooftops, but she doesn't hide it either. Every time she stands at that podium, she wears a small gold cross around her neck. It's subtle, understated, but undeniably there. For Karoline, it's a deeply personal symbol, a reminder of her values, her purpose, and the grace she aspires to show each day. But to Kevin, that cross wasn't just a symbol. It was an opportunity to make a point. He stood up, adjusting the microphone, and there was this glimmer in his eye. You could tell he thought he was about to make a splash. "Karoline," he began, dragging out her name in a way that immediately set the tone for what was coming. "I have a personal question for you, if you don't mind." The room started to quiet down. Reporters exchanged glances, sensing that something was about to happen. Karoline, in her usual composed manner, nodded slightly. "Go ahead, Kevin," she said. And with that, Kevin zeroed in. "You wear that cross necklace every single time you stand at this podium. It's like you're trying to make some kind of statement," he said, his voice tinged with sarcasm. Then he went further. "Do you believe faith and politics should mix? Because I don't. Don't you think it's inappropriate to bring your personal beliefs into a professional setting?" Now at this point, the murmur started. You could feel the energy in the room shift. But Kevin wasn't done. He was just getting started. "Some might even say," he continued, his tone sharpening, "that wearing that cross is less about faith and more about manipulating how people perceive you, like you're trying to paint yourself as moral, righteous, above reproach. Yet here you are defending policies that people see as divisive, policies they'd argue are anything but moral. Isn't that hypocritical?" And just like that, the air left the room. The silence was deafening. It wasn't the usual silence that comes when someone's waiting for an answer. No, this was different. This silence was heavy, uncomfortable. Everyone was holding their breath, waiting to see how Karoline would react. She didn't come out swinging. She didn't snap back or get defensive. Instead, she did something that no one expected. She paused, just for a moment. And in that moment, everything shifted. She reached up and lightly touched the cross at her neck, almost as if to ground herself. Then she looked Kevin directly in the eye and began to speak. Her voice was calm, steady, completely unshaken. "Kevin," she said, "I wear this cross not as a statement for others, but as a reminder for myself. It reminds me of humility, love, and grace, values I aim to live by every day, no matter what room I'm standing in." Boom. Just like that, the room shifted again. All eyes were on her. Even Kevin wasn't quite as smug anymore. He had opened the floodgates. Yes, but what poured out wasn't what he had expected. "You say faith and politics don't mix," she continued, "but I respectfully disagree. My faith doesn't dictate policy decisions. It doesn't demand that others believe what I believe. What it does do is guide how I interact with others, even when they disagree with me, even when they try to humiliate me. And at this, Kevin visibly shifted in his seat, but Karoline wasn't finished. You accuse me of using my faith to sway people's opinions, to manipulate how they see me. But Kevin, my faith doesn't manipulate, it anchors, it doesn't distract, it defines. It doesn't make me righteous. It reminds me that I'm not. It reminds me that I, like everyone else, am flawed. And that's why faith matters, not because we're perfect, but because it calls us to try to be better. Still, the room remained silent, riveted. This wasn't just a response, it was a masterclass in composure and conviction. You're welcome to question my policies, she continued, her tone softening slightly. You're even welcome to challenge my answers, as that's your right as a journalist. But when you question my faith, you're not questioning my politics. You're questioning my character. And Kevin, with all due respect, that line should never be crossed. For a split second, Kevin looked like he might respond. But what could he say? Every word he'd thrown, she had caught effortlessly and handed back with grace. But Karoline wasn't done delivering her message. Not to Kevin, not to the room, not to anyone who would watch this moment unfold later. Faith doesn't mean I'm above reproach, she said. It doesn't mean I have all the answers. But what it does mean is that I'm rooted in something bigger than myself. My faith calls me to love, to forgive, and yes, even to respect those who disagree with me. And that includes you, Kevin. There it was. The final note that turned what could have been a heated exchange into something more. A lesson, a message, a moment of clarity. She glanced around the room then, her eyes meeting those of the other reporters. Are there any further questions? She asked, her tone almost casual, as though she hadn't just dismantled an argument so deftly that it left everyone speechless. No one said a word. By the time Kevin left that room, he wasn't the same as when he came in. His smirk was gone, replaced with something closer to reflection. And in the days that followed, his demeanor in briefings shifted slightly. Nothing drastic, but enough for people to notice. Maybe, just maybe, Karoline's words had stuck. And that moment? It didn't just stay in the room. It rippled outward. Clips of Karoline's calm yet powerful response went viral. Some people praised her for standing strong in her beliefs. Others criticized her for dodging the question. But one thing was clear. Her words had struck a chord far beyond the walls of that briefing room. You see, this wasn't just about a necklace or a question of faith and politics. It was about something much deeper. It was about standing firm in your identity when it's being challenged. About showing grace under fire. About choosing respect over retaliation, even when it's the harder road to take. And that's a lesson we can all take to heart.